At 9 AM, call the meeting in order, pledge of allegiance.
States of America, republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Next will be approval of the agenda with one was submitted. We have an addition, correcting yesterday, was that how it went?
Yeah, so
Printed here.
you were the only one that,
Oh, okay,
you want to read it?
I'll read it. Yep. Yesterday, we're looking to change, be part of our consent agenda. Susan Windrip's start date to be today instead of next week. That's the only change.
That wasn't on here before.
Correct, wasn't on it before.
So this is
Five
five.
working. And that'll be 5. So please change the start date for Susan Windrip, start date to
We group?
11/7/2023 on the consent agenda. We'll be going into auditor's office.
That's Weegriff, isn't it?
That's today.
It's starting today. That's the only change I had. And I'll get that office full staff. Any other agenda items? Entertain a motion
So moved.
with the adjustment, for a second.
I'll second, we're approving these then.
Great.
Correct. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Next is minutes of the October 24th meeting. Sent out email, any additions or corrections?
Make a motion to approve it.
Motion move is made, is there a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Public comment. Any public comment? None on the screen. Nobody in the room here. We have no appointments. Okay, moving on to consent agenda, we have 5 items on the consent agenda. With the addition of the birthday for Sue. And the other ones that are printed. Feeling of the board.
See a problem with any of them. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Yeah. Second.
Excuse me, Greg. Further discussion?
So is number 2 a go?
My understanding. Cass, on number 2 on the consent agenda,
Yes, Commissioner, what's the question? I'm sorry.
Number 2, is that a for sure?
If they can work out the hours, there may be some hours. It's a potential. Polly's on, there's been a lot of back and forth as to whether she can work the hours into it. So there may be some training.
This is
Going
Heidi
through.
they're talking about.
Mary, you gotta mute yourself.
Thank you. Sorry, I apologize.
So it's potentially, she has a procedure manual that if should she be able to find time in her work schedule, that she would come in and work with folks, but it's be determined then between she and the auditor treasurer
Training purposes.
for training purposes only, not for staffing the desk.
further questions? Being none, all in favor of consent on the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Moving on to action items, back page. One will be, Brian, are you in the room here?
Justin's gonna-
Brian's home sick. First one is consider approving revised resolution for, number 24-42 for MnDOT Aeronautics Companion Grant for Airport Taxi Lane Project. That's kind of an update, or?
Yeah, good morning, commissioners. It sounded like I'm not fully familiar with this one. It sounded like they had the words excluding land acquisition in the original resolution. They took that out. So it's an updated resolution from aeronautics to not include that excluded. So I think it's
So
just
land we bought, they will pay their share that way.
assuming that's what this,
What?
yes.
We just did this here last.
Yeah, so it had
What
some,
we approved had a restriction that they wouldn't pay for the land. Yeah. This corrects it so that they will pay for the land. Their share
90%. What changed?
was. Well, they didn't use the right verbiage on first. 24-42, they didn't use the right verbiage. It said in there that they excluded paying for the land. Let's correct that so that they will pay.
initially it came in stating that they were not going to, correct? Now it's updated to where they took that out.
FAA's reverse course, they're gonna pay for it now?
They were always supposed to pay for it. Brian sent an email when he sent in the request that there was just. I don't know if you wanna call it a typo in the resolution that we approved last week from them. So they corrected it. So we're gonna approve the same resolution number. It's just gonna be revised today.
It says here.
And the
that-
land was always supposed to be included.
Yeah,
It's
but I
just that
thought
it
they were
wasn't
gonna
written
pay
correct.
because of, from the sixties, they got paid overpayment or something.
They're still withholding, I think, $1,000 and some dollars. But it was just written wrong in the request
The way I understand it, or withholding some,
for
but
the,
which was, the words excluding land acquisition is gonna be changed to including. Okay, with that information, back to you on the board.
You have to pay for their share of the land acquisition. Correct that, so I'll make a motion to approve this revision of resolution number 24-42, MnDOT Aeronautics.
Have a second, okay, further discussion?
I don't know, it's just confusing, I mean.
You got confused with the time from back in the sixties that they won't pay us for. And this project, there's two different deals there. And this project, they weren't gonna pay for, now they are. So it's the main thing.
And just so we understand, this is MnDOT, not FAA.
Oh,
So this is the state of Minnesota's 5% that they'll pay,
I get it.
not the MnDOT thing.
Good clarification, further discussion. Being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, carried. Number 2 is consider adopting resolution 23 43, a resolution requesting variance from standard. From standard for state aid operational project number SAP 028-610-021. Of the project number.
Yeah, so this project is for the replacement of the bridge down on County 10, near the Sportsman's Valleys. Park down there, it's Bridge 7540. So it currently sits on a compound curve. Better full substandard at this point. Both 30-mile-per-hour designs. With the reconstruction, they want us to bring it to a 40-mile-per-hour design. In the process of a variance, we need to get Houston County Board resolution on board with going to a lesser design than the 40. So that would be, our goal is to take it to a 35-mile-per-hour design. So we're gonna increase what is currently there, but it's not gonna meet standards. We have curves above and below this project that both meet 35 currently. So we're looking to kind of keep that same standard going down the hill. Currently is a compound curve, so you get a curve on a curve. So it's gonna be a betterment, but not to the standard MnDOT would like to see with that traffic volume. So that's why we have to request a variance to reduce that design speed. So we're gonna go from the 30 to a 35, but not to 40, so that resolution is to show that we're, as a board, in support of that.
Every turn above and below is 35.
There's a map or a layout in there, not
Mhm.
every turn, but there are curves above and below that are 35.
So going to the 35, is that would be a minimum amount of right of way purchase?
Yeah, so the other issue there is there's that ag land adjacent to County 10 right in that area.
Yeah.
So the more we pull it inside, we're gonna take the majority of that field to a 40. And then also we have two waterways that converge right in that area as well, so we have to do some channel realignment. So it gets to be kind of a more difficult project for acquisition and then also maintenance in the future. If we can avoid that waterway confluence and then also avoid that ag land, that's kind of our goal as well, is to try and minimize the impacts on the basin landowners. And also trying to better the road, so. Bridge is gonna be wider. I know right now if you drive it, it feels like you're getting squeezed in there on that curve. It's not the best situation. We'll have a wider structure. We have the right of way. So, it's not to the standards we need without a variance.
That's a really cool bridge.
It is, it's been rehabbed, but. Yeah, I'd like to get it up to standards.
Tight corner and an old bridge and it's a narrow bridge, so you don't have not much room for forgiveness.
It's not historical, is it? No combine going down to it.
Not yet,
Okay,
but no, we did go through the full we've gone through and put together the variance packet. That needs to be in, I think, by November 21st. And they meet this fall yet. If we don't approve or get our submittal in by the 21st, then it kicks it down into the spring. Erickson is working on the bridge design for us, so our goal is to get ahead of this curve to get the variance approved so that we don't spend a lot of money on design and they deny our variance. And we already have money spent on a bridge and a curve that it's not. Our goal is to stay ahead of the 8 ball and try and get this approved so we can continue on with design and not get beyond the point we should be at.
Well, I'll make a motion to grant the variance.
well, it's a motion to approve the resolution requesting a variance.
Yeah.
2343.
Yep.
And I'll second that motion.
Further discussion? Being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carry. Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Allison, on number one, see the typo there, 23, 42.
No, thanks.
Okay, number 3 is consider approving a CUP for Thomas and Judy Vicks for a solar energy system in the floodplain district, agriculture protection district in Houston County, or Houston Township.
Yes. Good morning. What we've got is a conditional use permit for solar panels. It requires a conditional use permit because it's in the floodplain. Normally, these would be just a regular permit. And so that's the set of circumstances that go along with it. It's right by Highway 16. As far as that goes. We do have some conditions in there that are pretty much established what the DNR wants to see for elevation control and certification. We certainly compared that to other permits that have exactly the same thing. So the other unique thing that was brought up during the meeting was the whole issue of the flooding that the planning commission had concerns that if this material floats downstream, we want to make it pretty clear that it's not of our doing and we're not responsible for the disposal cost. So. That's basically the set of circumstances that are with it.
So is this also considered shoreland?
I don't think it's high enough. As far as that one goes. It's floodplain.
Yeah, the only reason I asked. For. There's a constituent that also wanted to put in a solar system, but it was a shoreland district. And then so other rules came into play for that, like
Elevation.
septic and all that.
Yeah, if you could, yeah, definitely. If you get into the,
So it was, but this is different.
this one, when you bring it up on Beacon or it shows floodplain and it's that. And then there's a break in it where you start to see the old rail bed. That's actually above. the floodplain. So it's kind of a, and actually the board packet does have a picture of it too, that you can see it.
Floodplain lower, sure.
The shoreland is usually how it works is it has an elevation component to it, and it's the ordinary high water level, and it's a distance from that. Generally, it's about 300 feet that will reach around from that. And so obviously the elevation can kind of influence that part of it too. But I think there's the one picture,
So they're gonna have it on the railroad bed.
not quite. It's gonna be closer to the road. It looks close.
Well, actually, it's not the railroad bed, it's above that, correct? Or maybe it's, below.
It's below, and it would be a little bit closer to the road. Toward 16.
I see it.
Yeah, but yeah, you can see in there that the rail bed is actually above the floodplain designation.
Now, this is gonna be on some type of structure so that the panels aren't in the water. If
Right.
it ever floods, it just be the I-beams or
Yep,
whatever
exactly,
supports it.
right. What it is, it's basically an I-beam that they'll drive into about 9 feet, and then the panels sit against it. So it's supported up through the floodplain, and that's where the permitting starts to come in, is that it's kind of like structures are allowed to be placed in floodplain if they're elevated. And that's sort of what the circumstance is with this. And the idea with the 9 feet is that you actually have with an I-beam, you have a lot of surface area to kind of hold it in place in the event that you get into saturated ground. But that you're down below into something firm. So the likelihood of it being flushed away would take quite a storm to do it.
Yeah, because I don't think in the recent floods that we've had, I don't think water's ever got to this point.
That was part of the discussion.
Doesn't mean that it's not in the floodplain. I don't think I've ever seen water get to that spot.
The panels are what, like some inches off the ground. too.
They're gonna be about over 3 feet, yeah.
Did the conditions note that the county's not responsible if a flood does come and wash them out? or-
Yeah, and that's what condition number 4 is. Yeah, that was Commissioner Meyer's conclusion with at the planning commission. That exactly that in the event that these wash away, in no way we're dealing with the disposal of any of it or any of the activities that go along with it.
With that all being said, I'll just make a motion to approve the CUP with all of the conditions that are attached to it.
Motion made, is there a second? Further discussion, question? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Next is Dirk Swedberg, consider approving request to approve budgeting for Houston County Jail in 2024, then review the jail budget operation July 2024. Tony, gentlemen.
Good morning, Commissioners. So the jail, been a big issue, at least for some of us. I've gone back and forth about my opinion on keeping it open, closing it type thing. I think we're being too hasty at that. Like I said before, I think we should wait and see give it a 6 months. Throughout next year. To be able to evaluate a little better. We met last week with the committee and we all pretty much agreed on that also. So that's where I'm looking at right now. You know, Commissioner Myrie asked about arrest last week or week before, on the weekends only. We don't have that data. It'd take many man hours to collect that. I can tell you throughout the whole year, arrest per agency. I can't tell you specifically on the weekends. So if you want that information, I have that information for you now if you would like it.
Take it whenever you get it.
So why are we considering this when it's already been approved in the preliminary budget?
Well, I guess realistically, the employees over there are nervous. They want some security, I guess.
Well, I mean, it just seems a little odd to be taken out separately at this juncture. I mean, it's already been approved in the preliminary budget, preliminary levy. So it's already in there. I mean.
Right, but you always can take it out too. That's the concern.
I think the discussion we had at the committee meeting is that they want to be confident they have 6 months. And, you know, with a preliminary budget, the word preliminary. There's so many things that can change between now and whenever. They just let's take a look at what might change throughout the year. I know they're looking at other avenues of with the DOC on and so on. So I think this is mostly a vote of confidence right now, because as you said, it's in the preliminary budget, but preliminary budgets mean that preliminary can be altered.
Well, we
I
can
think
have,
they don't like that.
we can have the discussion when it comes to the final budget, but to make it a separate issue, I don't understand why we would do that. I mean, it's been budgeted for the whole year for 2024, so.
That's what.
We'll have to commit until the 28th of December, whatever that last meeting is, 27th.
You guys wanna
Finalize
come to
But here, we're only gonna commit for 6 months. I mean, that's a little out of turn too. July of 2024.
Before review, I believe the wording was review.
Review. And so we can look at the actual data we have.
I don't know, I just think it's out of turn that we would make this a separate issue. It's just been already approved in the preliminary budget. When it comes to the final budget, most likely it'll be approved there too.
I guess that's up to you guys. My concern is that employees do have a lot of concerns and about this.
I think,
It's been a big issue.
I mean, the most of us here, I think, agree that we should go till next July and see how this thing works out, you know, I mean, you might be able to get young juveniles in here. In the meantime, we don't know, I mean, an
Yes,
open book.
correct. And Dean's here to talk about that. I'd like to talk about that also, hear about it. We're looking to possibly be able to hold juveniles for up to 8 days. So we're doing significant income into the county. So we'd be able to hold both adults and juveniles.
So there's licensing for, it's called the 8-day temporary holding facility for juveniles. Excluding weekends, so in theory, it's a 10-day. We've been having an uptick in juvenile holds and placement, and we've been having a lot of challenges with that. Where we ended up, transporting to an 8-day facility up in Washington County. And then, we have to transport again when the 8 days is up or 10 days is up to another facility going up to Wilmer. We just had transport yesterday going to pick up one in Washington temporary facility to Moorhead. So it has been an issue for us, and it's been an issue for Fillmore and Wabasha and Winona counties as well. I reached out to them regarding their numbers and if they're having the same issues, and they all said they were. Winona County actually has had meetings about discussing contracting a bed to have for sure a bed available for juveniles. So they're very interested in what comes of whatever, down the line for us for juveniles. So DOC, I've sent everything I can as far as the blueprints and layout of our facility because it's a new facility. It has to meet the current requirements of the DOC for 2960. As soon as they can come down or send somebody down to take a walkthrough to see if there's anything that they can point out that are issues in our facility is the end of the last week in November. But I've already started gathering information from other temporary holding facilities because there are changes. Our job descriptions would have to be revised, different requirements for training and all that, policy and procedures. We'd have to get all that before we could apply for licensing. So I want to get the DOC to look at our facility and discuss the options of housing both and see if there's any major issues that they could see versus just hanging up a few more curtains so there's no sight. And we'll go from there. And then once I get that, then I'll be able to know if I should get the policy and procedure created and job description changes and stuff like that, so I can apply for licensing.
So one is a question of segregation of juveniles from the adults.
Yep,
Then the jailers have to be trained in dealing with juveniles.
yep,
So there'll be a cost involved with that. If a curtain is acceptable or if it has to be a solid wall. is
right,
another
yes,
question.
yes,
So there could be some cost involved with getting this licensure to be the 8-day, but once you've got the 8-day, then other facilities like Winona or Wabash or Fillmore would be able to
potentially
bring
house
somebody
here.
to here
Mhm.
instead of way the heck up there.
Yep, and they charge anywhere from $300 to $375 a day per juvenile. So right now our human services has to pay that. And we've had a juvenile in a facility somewhere almost the whole year. And same with these other counties, they have to pay that too. So obviously sending transport way up 3, 4, 5, 6 hours one way. It'd be a lot more financially feasible if it's neighboring county. And a lot easier for court hearings and visits for the parents or family and all that, so. I'm cautiously optimistic at this point. I had a long conversation with the juvenile inspector, talked to her about anything I could see as potential hangups. And she didn't seem to think there was anything major that I talked about.
Would the new contract for meals, what was the meals that they bring to? Is that a satisfactory meal for kids as well?
Yeah, I just looked up the dietary DOC requirements for juveniles, and the only difference is they have to get 2 more servings a day of dairy. So that's just gonna be basically they get milk, not just with breakfast, they can get a cup of milk with every meal, so it's not a huge difference.
Is there a separate regulation for exercise and
Yep.
fresh air type?
The fresh air, because it's an 8-day, there's no requirement for an outdoor area. That was one of the big issues, obviously, because they require outdoor rec areas for juveniles if it's more than an 8-day facility. But they do have like square footage requirements and activities, daily activities scheduled or offered requirements and all of that. So, but nothing that will add cost.
And this is just juveniles with legal issue,
Criminal, yep,
criminal issue.
yep.
This isn't mental.
No, yeah, this is just anybody who gets basically arrested with charges that they would be adjudicated for, so they get arrested and held. So right now, we do the same thing right now. We're approved for 24 hours excluding weekends and holidays, right? This will just basically be the same except extended, and then we just have to have different training and programming.
What about medical?
Medical, we have our medical, so there's not very much difference. There's just a few different questions that we have to do. In fact, our nurse right now, for her company, she works at the juvie in La Crosse. So she's a nurse at the juvenile facility in La Crosse, so it's really, yeah.
You also talked to Renee Patterson from the DOC, and she was extremely interested in that,
Mhm.
since they have a lot of same issues not finding placement. Like juveniles.
Yeah, yeah, in fact, she emailed me yesterday and was saying that they had a meeting and the county administrator was gonna reach out to Tess about possibilities of contracting a bed or something if it gets to that point, but obviously it's a little bit early right now, because we haven't got.
When Winona built theirs, they didn't take into consideration juvenile.
I can't answer that, I don't.
know. They should have. But they didn't, it's not in there right now.
So on the 8 day, is it typical that they'll be gone longer than 8 days?
It just depends on the charges and the criminal history of the juvenile. But basically, so you usually have a social worker and then they have a probation agent and their lawyers, and they have to figure out whether or not they're gonna have placement beyond the 10 days. It just buys more time, because right now, once they have court, if they're in our jail, we only have 6 hours to get them out of there for the DOC. So basically, that'll give them days to be able to either have another review hearing or a fine placement, and it saves the cost of having to transport them to Washington for 8, 9, 10 days and then transport them again.
Well, there'd be quite a bit of savings.
Just in transport, there'd be quite a bit of savings, yeah.
Savings for
The transportation. as
the
far as-
one we have.
Yeah, what we have. So we have one pretty much almost all the time.
We've had 3 off and on all year. We have one right now that's long-term placement, and one that just got out of Washington yesterday, and this is her 3rd time in Washington County temporary this year. And she's been long-term placement once already this year, and now she just got transported again from Washington to another long-term facility.
And as far as Health and Human Services and somebody, do they have to go up to Washington to check on them?
No, sheriffs, we get ordered to do the transport. So I have to line up transport to go, and
But Human Services doesn't have to go.
I guess we can't answer that.
I don't know. if
They go out there separately.
Yeah, I don't know, because I mean, they have a social worker assigned
It
to
might
it.
save money there, it might not.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know,
Here, it saves time.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I mean, Dean reached out to other counties, they were.
Yeah.
Thought it was Christmas time for them.
yeah, they're very excited. So now I'm getting emails regularly asking for any updates. Which I'm like, I don't have any yet.
They're making reservations already.
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, some of them don't they reserve room or a bed?
They contract.
Yep.
Contract.
Yeah, none of the neighboring counties contract, but they're all talking about it and wanted to. It's just that financially, some of them can't afford it, or they'll have to go in together. But Winona's talking about contracting already.
This is for 8 beds.
The maximum that you can get approved on the 8-day temporary holding is 8. So unless DOC comes back and say, oh, your units don't have enough square footage or don't meet, like Washington's approved for 5, I think. And Harbor's approved for 6, I think. I don't know why they have such, not just 8, maybe they didn't have the space.
Won't know until they get back.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's some cost in converting that old space over for juvenile detention.
Well, that's what I want to find out.
Right, and then there's also the change of job description.
Yeah.
So that'll change banding for the jailer dispatch.
Possibly.
Do you know?
No, I don't know the answer to that. I'm not part of the banding.
When that person comes down for the walkthrough inspection, can that be less at that time as to what is required and what level of the training is needed?
I already have that information as far as the training that needs to be.
And the final question is if we're helping DOC, I was thinking the grants or assistance coming down from them to address the cost.
Oh, yeah, I don't know about grants, but there's grants available. Yep.
Well, Eric's right, I mean. We're gonna be paying a higher hourly wage because of the additional training and banding. Yeah, we should know that too.
Right. I mean, I guess, you know, that would be a question on where, I mean, if they were to get rebanded, at what level?
Yeah,
you know?
it almost seems like you almost have to send a job description out to get banded to see. if
Right.
it will change.
Job description, then get the back.
It's just to give you an idea, just 4 juveniles has a potential of over $400,000 revenue here, which is more than we ever made for Winona. Because there's no added staff. That Winona, we did have added staff.
Well, I think we should wait until we get more information on that situation before we approve anything. I mean, like I say, this is out of turn. This is pulling something separate off to. You know, it's already been approved for the preliminary budget, so, I mean, I don't see the.
I think when you brought it to the committee, Sheriff, weren't you having some feedback from staff that were concerned because they read stuff in the media, newspapers, et cetera? So it just seems to be this dark cloud hanging over, is that why this
Yeah.
brought that forward?
That's extremely.
This would help alleviate some of that. I understand where you're coming from, Greg, but like Chairman Severson said, it is preliminary, so it's a big unknown, and especially in a market where we're fighting to keep jailers, you know,
Right.
we don't pay as much as outside areas. If I was working there, I think I would want that peace of mind myself. With that being said, I would make a motion to consider approving the request line item for here.
Motion is made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's just a vote of confidence for the people that are employed over it. So they have an idea that, you know, we'll be visiting it again in July.
Actually,
And I
this,
can't say it will be also discussed during the final budgeting time too. So,
no, because in the final budgeting, this is gonna supersede the final budget. This is already gonna be approved. So we're going out of turn here, like I, that's what I'm saying. We're approving something separate for the budget. Before we even do a final budget.
any further discussion?
Well, I got to agree with Eric as far as timetable. Got the potential. With regard to the preliminary budget, it's already set. Jail's in there.
That's right.
I don't anticipate, from my perspective, changing that. I personally want to see the jail stay open, but making a vote, and locking us in on the jail now instead of waiting till the overall approval of the budget in December, it's like Eric said, it's out of order.
Right, well, like I say, I think the main thing is vote of confidence for our employees. That's a deal that, you know, it's been a lot of discussion about closure. And we want to make sure that we keep our people because we're losing them to La Crosse and other communities. So, any further discussion? I'll make a roll call vote on this, please.
Okay, District 1,
Yes,
District 2,
No,
District 3,
No,
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
yes. Anything else?
Oh, yes, Winona, I'm updated about that. It's talked to Sheriff Gannerud. They still don't have a date. They're still backed up. They are still looking for 4 more jailers. And they're having a tough time and they believe they pay more money than us, so they're still having a tough time finding 4 more besides their construction issues or they had that backed them up. He guaranteed me that he'll give us at least a 2-week notice.
Sure,
2-week
one of them
notice.
still are.
Right.
I mean,
Because he's agreeing to pay meals. Besides the hour or the daily rate for each inmate.
So. Before we had a contract that they would pay for X number, 15, I believe it was, they had, is that gonna continue, or when you said each inmate, is that back just to the?
We're just back to the regular paper person since the contract ended. We didn't extend the contract. He's agreed to pay our daily rate, plus the meals he's gonna pay for also. So it's basically about the same, I think, so
Yeah, yeah.
they were paying before.
So we go to child taking care of kids, do we have to hire more people, you think, or can we just transfer some of the people we got into them?
I don't believe we.
I don't
Any more
believe
people?
we'll need to hire more.
No,
Put your job descriptions for cheap.
that have those and see. How their banding is or how they're classified, I guess. Yeah, I mean, it's a very good question. To know,
I did ask for one job description for their juvenile staff. And I did receive that. There's a requirement that there's a chief juvenile administrator as well. Someone has to be designated as that, so I asked for that job description so I could know what they have down for the duties and stuff. And with that job description was their pay, but I mean, obviously it's not apples to apples with Washington County, it's Stillwater.
That's okay.
Banding would dictate where it goes.
Right.
Can the person that would have to be dedicated as the chief? Whatever. That, I mean, that's a duplication. Be the chief as well as one of the jailers out there.
Yeah, so the way they have it is they have an administrative chief, someone designated under their staff as a chief juvenile administrator. So that being said, it's a Monday through Friday, so that would be an addition if we did it within a staff other than like me. So
You could be.
I can be, yeah.
And I imagine we gotta have a woman, sure.
Yeah, the female thing could be an issue. If you have, the way it reads is if you have a juvenile female being held in your facility, you need to have a female staff on.
Do we have the staff?
We have 4 female staff right now. And they said if one were to come in, you don't have to have one on, but you have to have something in your policy about being able to call one in. So.
Any other questions of the? Thank you much.
Thank you.
thank you.
Briefly action items of today, getting into discussion, Holly, update on the license center and variants of hours and so on.
I thought it was a good time for a quick update with that. So I just wanted to say thank you for the ability to use the variance of office hours in the license center if needed. So far, we have not utilized this option and we hope to not have to. November and early December may be tricky yet, but we are doing everything in our power to keep moving ahead without making changes, even if they're temporary changes, unless they're absolutely necessary. We've made some progress since our last meeting, but unfortunately, the process with the state is a long one and it's not a fast one. So still a few items there we're waiting from on the state level. Otherwise, we have 2 team players that are doing an awesome job keeping up. We have a new part-time gal starting today. So again, we keep moving in the right direction, but it's just nice to know that variance of hours option is there yet for the next month or so until we can get everybody fully on board. So just wanted to give everybody an update on that.
At the variance, we had a deadline of like the 15th of December was the sunset on that particular.
It could have, that's how, yeah, that was the date that we used, hoping that everything at the state would be completed by then. So, again, we know it'll be completed by then for the 1 background check. And then the second one that we just sent in a week ago could take another 5 weeks. So it's just a lengthy process.
Any other questions, Paul? Thank you for that update.
Good job.
Okay, moving on to board reports. Greg, you want to start it off?
Oh, let's see, had a zoning meeting and I had we tabled one, we're gonna do a farm visit on that 15th. Yucatan Township, we'll do a farm visit, and then we have the hearing on the 16th. So it's kind of a touch and go hearing. Got a lot of stuff to figure out before we're gonna pass that. And outside of that, I guess I missed the airport meeting. Bob was in on that, so he can talk about that. There's another meeting that I can't remember what it was about now.
Park last week.
Yeah, we had a parks meeting up, and that was all pretty well going in the right direction.
Okay.
Oh, that's about all I got.
For sure.
Dewey and I had the jail meeting, which was pretty well covered, here. With the presentation from the sheriff and jail administrator. And I'll be attending the WinLAC for you, next week then.
Great.
Yep, I'm available for that, and we
Okay.
have land use next week, so.
Yep.
How are we coming on the land use? Getting that all figured out. Are we getting close?
On which one?
Land use program and the one call it comprehensive land use plan. How are we coming on that?
They're still working on that. They'll be updating here this next week. In fact, I'm gonna have them send you the packet from last meeting so that you can prepare for that. There'll be some more discussion on that.
Whose land use plan?
The WinLAC for the southeastern Minnesota.
Water judge, property.
You know, and the thing is, it affects Winona County the most, and, you know, some of Wabasha, some of Olmsted, very little bars.
Pine Creek.
Okay, Mr. Burns.
Okay. I had the airport meeting last week. And the discussion on that. First off, there's more FAA study requirements done by the engineering firm that comes out of our funding packet, you know, the monies that we've received over the years of that, in order to get approval to do the construction of T hangars or regular. The paving is done, the landscaping is basically done. So we could start building T hangars anytime, but we still have to have this study done first. Once that's done, then the T hangars, so it's a question. T hangars, it's an estimated cost of 1.7 to build an 8-unit T. So we have to see if we have parties interested in building their own, which would still have to meet certain FAA and county specifications to do it, but could be considerably less because you don't have to pay wages and whatnot like the county would have. Federal, we're using federal dollars. So first we got to get the study done. So really the T hangars won't be an issue until 2025. Could start in 2024 after the study is done, but the 2025 reports. And we've had 3 people interested in coming to the airport. We have 13 planes at the airport. The trouble with AT hangars, if we build the AT hangars, maybe we won't get anybody new because the people we have want the T hangars instead of where they're at. So we build a new T hangars and stay with the same numbers. It'll be my recommendation that assuming we decide to build 8 T hangars, we do an option to add 2 more. His $1.7 million estimate was including the runways and the taxiways and whatnot to get to the hangars, which we've already done. So that should cut the cost. But if you wait a year, the costs are going to go up because there you go. So kind of in the air on that. We do have to do the study. That'll come before the board at some point in time for approval. To do the study, our share of the cost. It's like a $220,000 study. So $11,000 would be our share of the cost. Feds in the state. $1,000,007, if that's how much it is, that's considerable more. With regard to the Hiawatha meeting, Hiawatha Valley meeting yesterday, we had reports about the peer support network that they have, the adult community-based services. One of those is the fact that they have a psychologist that's going to be in Houston County periodically. I mean, it's a couple days a week. But I guess not periodically, a couple days a week. And then they also talked about the mental health reaction team. That when they get a call that goes to dispatch and the police goes to the site, the police then make the decision that it's a mental health issue, and then they have to call for the mental health team to come. So it's an hour and 20 minutes before somebody gets it. Trying to figure a way to make that go quicker to get mental health on site. One of them is training of dispatchers so that if they get a call, maybe they can make a decision to send mental health right away. Police would still go, but wouldn't have to wait for their assessment. They could send the mental health team right away so that it shortens up the amount of time before somebody gets there to help the individual. So that was interesting. Then with regard to one thing, the other day when we had our, what was that doing, the
Finance or
communal finance. Talking about vehicles. And we know that Health and Human Services has got 3 vehicles that are all on their last legs.
duct
And
tape. Duct tape.
Duct tape. And we have other vehicles that are ready to be coming off the list. But Health and Human Services would be first. We did a little checking. Eric Bryant sent me the listing of the state bid packages. So on a state bid package, Equinox LS. So it's all-wheel drive, doesn't have all the heated seats and all that business, but it has the backup camera, it has electric windows and air conditioning. They run about $23,000. A little bit nicer one would be 24. The LTs are 24 to 25. When you go to the dealers, when you're looking at a vehicle at the dealer level, a brand new Equinox LS is $30,000 is the cheapest one I saw. So when you look at 22,000, 23,000 versus the 30,000, there's quite a bit of savings by buying new through the state bid package. You just don't know how many are bid. If you go used, it was interesting, the used ones, like a 2020, and the used Equinox it was a similar size, which used to look bigger. The used one with 50,000 miles is 22,006 MOT. 2017 with 69,000 to 17,000. 2020 with a package, and it's got 40,000 miles is 26,700. So you can buy 3 new ones on the bid package. And for all practical purposes, it'd be less than buying used to do that. Now, financials, as far as that's concerned, we've got 300,000 plus in ARPA monies. That is not yet dedicated. We've talked about a lot of different things that we can do with it, but it's not dedicated. Plus, there's $100,000, $250,000 payments that we got from the state that Carol said is not yet dedicated. So we could put vehicles into Health and Human Services that are decent for $75,000, let's say. Assuming the ones we have sell for a little bit of money. And then we could take some of that ARPA money and put it into the reserve capital fund. To start replacing vehicles that we have for replacement when they come out of the, lease program that we're in. Our idea is to eventually get out of the lease. But highways got, we've got Health and Human Services, and Fleet's got 3 of them, those 3 little Jeeps that are all come due in 2024. So that would, I guess, sensibly be the most common, the most likely ones to replace 24. And then as vehicles reach the end of their lease period, instead of leasing another one, we just end the lease and buy one. But that's why we'd have to put money away now in order to start building a fund in order to buy them down the road. And maybe we leave the leases on the pickups or something. But it's food for thought. That's all I bring up as far as that's.
How much money you talking?
Well, it'd be 75,000 to buy for human
Right.
services. It'd be another 75 likely next year for the fleet vehicles. I was thinking if we put the 100,000 towards these and 25,000 into the reserve, plus another 125 to 175 out of the ARPA fund into the capital fund to build it up and leave everybody's cost factors for vehicle replacement and whatnot like they have the same. So that that money not needed for leasing could go back into this fund to keep building the fund. About right to explain that, Carol? About right.
So what about, what else you put on these?
But basically it's taking the lease payments and putting them into that fund.
And leaving them in the fund.
So you're talking 175,000 out of ARPA money?
125 to 175. Plus the 25,000 that's left over on the fund. Which would still leave us 125 to 150 ARPA money to use for. That's if we have an appetite to get out of the lease program, we gotta start something. So food for thought. I know it's no action, but I just wanted to tell you where we're at. I got what Brian's not able to give me any answers today, but I want to find out really what is the availability of the state
These different vehicles.
vehicles. And you can get tracks, but those are so damn small, but they're smaller than the Jeep, so I don't think.
What do we put on, 15,000 miles a year?
Well, we've got one that's almost 200,000, one that's 180,000, one that's 130,000.
What years we had them?
Carol, what's the mileage a year we use? Do you have an idea of that?
On which,
Like for
Human services.
human services?
no,
Okay,
You know, the Jeeps that are a 5-year lease. Due up in 24, they're in the mid-30s to 40. So that's 4 years, that's 10 to, yeah, about 10.
they don't put a lot of miles.
Not a lot.
well, and there was the whole effect of
COVID.
COVID, because they
They didn't go out.
really weren't
They didn't
traveling.
go out, yeah.
So the last 4 years is skewed a bit. I think we looked at probably 15,000 miles a year for the fleet cars.
And those are the cars that are also used beyond public health too. Isn't that some of the cars that you use when you travel, Bob?
Yeah. The fleet cars are
The fleet car.
Used by service. They have their own.
Oh, okay.
Human Services has 3 that need to be replaced. They're really bad. But they don't really want to leave town. And then Fleet has the 3 that are gonna come due next. If we own them, if they're low miles and one's, then you don't have to get rid of all of them at the same time. You can rotate. And once we have a fund developed, we've got the money available to do the replacement. Instead of having a lump sum that comes out someplace down.
And if we buy,
You're never gonna have so money.
we buy new vehicles, we're gonna at least get 8 to 10 years out of them.
I would-
And we're got 5-year lease where we're at, so I mean. Get a lot more time out of that vehicle.
And I was thinking that we could buy used ones with some miles on them. And then that's the first one to go, and then the next one, and the next miles to
get
But
started.
to use. It's foolish to pay, say $5,000 to get $40,000 more, 40,000 miles more. That doesn't make sense.
Getting a good used one to get the program started to, give us that initial cost down a little bit.
And I just checked in Caledonia, I didn't check any place else. Like Polka or Crescent or anything. On those.
But it's, and I guess we know that, the local establishment has access to other lots too. I mean, they do much trading back and forth.
They ain't got it in town, they got it in rural.
They got more in Caledonia than
Do they?
the cars are going like crazy. Yep. That price, but you can get them, new ones. Anyways, that was just food for thought from my part.
Yep.
Well, you buy them used and we only put on 15,000 miles a year and you buy them at 40,000, we're gonna get a lot of years out of that.
It'll minimize the initial hit.
Yeah, I mean, if we can get that down to 60,000 instead of 75, that makes a big difference.
Anything else, Robert?
Nope, that was all I just wanted to bring up.
Thanks for looking at it up.
Here,
Last Thursday, I had a Google Meet meeting with a constituent of mine who's a high school graduate, Houston High School graduate. She currently goes to Gustavus Adolphus. And I met with 2 of her other peers that go to the same school, and they wanted to interview me on the health of the Root River. And they asked me if I would talk to them, and I said I would, and answered some of their questions. I was told her I was always on. I've been on the Root River Watershed 1 committee, so I'm familiar with some of the issues, and I gave them what we've been doing there on that committee as a whole with all the other counties. So it was a good back and forth, good discussion. Hopefully I was helpful in answering some of their questions. So
are they doing a study? or
yeah,
are they doing
it's a
paper?
paper. Yep. So also I just wanted to bring everybody up to date. As you know, we voted to conduct the investigations into Amber Miller's public comment complaints. Bob and I have been in discussion with an investigative group, and we've hired Crescent investigators out of Stewartville to conduct the investigation. And through them, they also have access to an employment lawyer, Susan Hanson. So if we need to, we can utilize that service as well through them. So it's officially started today, and so I just wanted to give everybody a heads up or an update on that.
Any ideas, Bob?
What's that?
Any ideas to cost?
It's so much an hour, so we have no idea of total cost.
Do you anticipate that this investigative group will be calling all us?
Possibly, yep.
Okay.
Wherever it leads him to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wherever they go.
He's had his initial interview with Amber, and they'll go from there.
Anything else?
Nope, that's all I got.
A curiosity question for you. The health of the Root River. What is the health of the Root?
Right now, it's pretty good. Been a dry year.
Yeah.
No mud.
So it's,
They do sampling of the river after every rain event. I found that out because I asked at our last meeting. After every rain event, they try to sample the river at Mount Prairie. They have a station there. I think they have one in Houston too, so. And the last few years, it's actually gotten better. You know, we have had less flood events and stuff like that. So
so although it's. I mean, it looks muddy and stuff, but it's still relatively. Clean water. It's just sand and stuff that's.
it's the root. I mean, that's why they call it the root. It's always been a muddy river.
I know, like the Mississippi, muddy Mississippi. Like,
It's not too bad, but don't drink the water. Okay. Thank you.
basically, all the things were covered. I had finance meeting with Bob last week, had parks meeting last week. Not much else going on. Joe is gonna take care of my Winlac meeting next week. That's all I have scheduled, so pretty quiet on my end.
So just a question with regard to parks. Wildcat. I know the investigations ongoing, but what's the status on Wildcat for next
We asked to look into Caroline Bryan to look into credit card and reservation systems that would be independent of the county. So that's not a cost to, and then find out what kind of costs it would be. So that it can, and then it won't be the management and it won't be the county, be an independent type of thing. So that when, and if there's a change in management, we don't lose that reservation system or accounting system. We're getting prices, is all we're at right now.
But isn't it right after the first of the year that we start taking reservations for the seasonal?
Yep.
So,
The seasonals, yes, the letter has been sent up.
so the letter sent out right after the first year, we take the reservations for the seasonal first come, first serve on the spot that they've got.
I believe that's the plan.
Right.
Because the lottery was done and it's.
A lot of done.
Yeah.
For the next 3 more years, but, or whatever. But what about managing the park? Set up on that after,
No, we are not.
Are we going to pursue a longer term contract for a manager instead of 1 year?
3 to 5 years. We're looking at 2 to 5.
Would that be?
There's a lot of discussion yet as far as the reservation systems. We're kind of at it right now.
Are we gonna have to go through application process again, or are they gonna?
There was a discussion on that.
We don't know.
Strictly a discussion at this time.
just curious, it's November, it's not that long till
Be open.
I think there's been some, I believe, Polly, you said some have come back already, some reservations for next year. For the seasonal.
Yep, they're coming in good. We heard through the grapevine that there would be 2 people that won't be coming back, but at this point, yeah, they keep flowing in, so I'm thinking it'll be pretty full. And again, we've got our waiting list for those last 2 spots. If they are the only 2 that decide not to come back. So I think it'll,
What's the deadline? What's the deadline again as far as letting us know if they wish to come back as far as seasonal?
did that letter say? Was it the end of November? I don't have that letter in front of me right now.
Okay. We needed to know by a certain date if that was.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the cause? Anything else? Any other closing public comment? Yes.
Regarding the jail. Has anyone on the committee researched why Homestead County closed theirs in April of 2020? They had 16 beds for treatment.
Dean's looking into all of that.
Why the Olmsted County closed theirs is in question. I guess that'd be a game question.
They did Homestead, County, Dodge. They closed their 16 beds. Just wondering if you're researching why.
Why? Do we want to get into this kind of question? Good point.
When Olmsted's a juvenile facility or a juvenile mental health facility?
It was a juvenile detention center. with 16 beds, but they moved to a new model that incorporated more mental health services and less incarceration. Part. There's also a staff. component.
I think part of what he looked into was too, that could have been a longer term, because I know we used to years ago transport up there. But depends if it's an 8-day excluding weekends, depends if it's long term, not just because variables on the, which they can hold and how long they can hold. Versus the 8 days is gonna be a pretty good option, because that's something that everyone's looking for, is the temporary housing. And right now, we have to transport all over, the county does, all over the state. It is a high need, so.
There are 70 counties with public juvenile detention centers.
Right.
It is
And unfortunately, the need, kind of outweighs the availability some weekends and times. Which puts a lot of miles on vehicles. And hours, yeah,
Any, thank you.
thank you.
Any other public comment? There being none, I entertain a motion.
So move. Second.
Discussion? Yes, we're all in favor, say aye.